Before we begin, let's take a breath. Now imagine stepping into warm silence. No phones, no pressure, just you suspended in stillness. At Mind Over Matter practice in Victor Harbour, you'll find space to truly reset, whether it's in their float tank, a private infrared sauna, or a guided ice bath designed to bring you back into your body. Mention Trav when you book and receive 15% off of all treatments. Go to mindovermatterpractice.com.au. This is where the healing begins. G'day legends, and welcome to today's episode of the Cold Exposure Hot Topics podcast, and a big thank you once again to Mind Over Matter Practice down in Victor Harbour for sponsoring today's show. My guest today is Town of Gawler Councillor Cody Davies. Cody, how are you?
Good.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on today, and it's really cool to be in one of the facilities that's, well, newish to Gawler, the podcasting room down here, and thank you for suggesting that we come here.
Yeah, look, I think there's a lot of things that the Gawler Council does that people don't know exist. For example, I don't know how many of you would know that for free you can book a nice podcasting studio with all this soundproofing stuff, and it's really quite useful.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource, and definitely one I'm going to try and capitalise on a bit more than the home theatre that I've got at the moment, which is basically a tripod and my phone.
Yeah.
So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and where, I guess, the interest in politics might have come from?
So, I guess I wasn't always a... there are some kids who are just like at 10, they're like, oh, I'm going to be the Prime Minister one day or something. I was, maybe the Prime Minister of video games. But I basically... when I was 16, we were living basically in Gawler, and then my family moved around for work, and we moved to Singapore. And I came back here to Gawler again when I was 21.
Wow.
And that sort of shaped a lot of my experiences with just seeing the difference between what things can be, or just like public transport, for example. Have you been to a place like Singapore before?
Not Singapore, no, but I've been to Cambodia and Thailand and places like that where it is a bit chaotic. Is that where you're sort of going there, or?
No. Singapore is a very developed, organised, neat country, and they have a really fantastic public transport system.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically discourage cars. Like if you have a car, you're either a taxi driver or you're rich and you want to show off. And they basically have like a car tax to, because it's a island that's like an hour's drive across, but they have to fit like 8 million people there. And so everything's all very structured. And so the trains come during peak hours, it's every 3 minutes. During non-peak hours, it's every 6 minutes.
Wow.
So slow. And so, and I came back to Australia and said, I'm going to use the train. And my grandparents said, so do you have a schedule? And I was like, why would you need a schedule for the train? And it turned out, so in peak times, these might come every half an hour, and then after 6 p.m. or whatever, they'll show up every hour.
Yeah.
And that was just like culture shock coming back, because I hadn't, when I left Australia, I wasn't really old enough to be on my own wandering into the city, or at 14 or 15 or whatever. I wasn't really just going off on the train on my own or that sort of thing, but I got used to it in Singapore, and so I was like, well, let's just use the public transport here. And that cultural shock is sort of also something that it makes you think politically in some ways of like, why aren't things better here? Or what's stopping us here, or what are the things that I can tell people here about what I learned over there? Yeah, fascinating. And so we're looking at about 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 in Singapore then? Yeah, so about 5 years. But it was 5 years so I was 16 basically, and so that's the years of your life where usually you get your driver's license, you turn 18, you get, you wake up on the gutter in Hindley Street or whatever after being peer pressured by all your friends. I just didn't have those experiences.
Mm-hmm.
like it's just a different culture in Singapore. So I sort of came back, and it was just a very different experience. And I was like, oh, what do you need a driver's license for? And what, you know?
Yeah.
I don't like the taste of beer that much because because beer doesn't taste very good, and you have to be peer pressured into it.
I think you're right. Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned about the experiences that maybe you didn't have. What are the experiences that you did that are completely different to those forming years?
So I think some of it was just some of the restrictions I had meant that I had to find alternate ways of doing things. Like I couldn't get my first job was a full-time job basically because I couldn't get I couldn't go to the work at McDonald's or whatever in Singapore because I didn't have the right visa.
Okay. Yeah.
As a like dependent visa sort of situation.
Yeah.
And so it was only, and so I started doing stuff like, let's do online, let's do YouTubing, let's do graphic design, and so that set me off on a path of like self-employment and upskilling myself and all that sort of thing in a way that, yeah, just set me off on a different path than I would have had if I'd been in Australia the whole time, going through the traditional over here ways of doing things.
Yeah, you know? the rite of passage, which is basically the pub to the gutter, like you said before, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. So it obviously would have been very unique. You mentioned like the public transport side of things and how different it was over there. What are some of the cultural differences that have shaped your understanding of what the world can be?
So I think, well, I talk about the public transport as a positive, and I guess to talk about more of a negative on Singapore is that it's very neat, very clean, very organised, but also very strict, very, it's a democracy, but the same party has been in power for the full 70 years or whatever that the country's been in existence.
Yeah.
And so they don't really have politics the same way. It's basically like you've got the Prime Minister who's not talking about right now exactly, but like, you get situations where you got the Prime Minister who's the son of the founding sort of Prime Minister, and then and the Prime Minister's like sister runs the only media organisation and brother runs the only newspaper in the country, and it's sort of like the only fighting you're going to get is like family infighting,
family disputes,
disputes,
Okay,
and so politics coming back here was a very interesting experience because I didn't really pay attention when I was 14 or whatever to politics, but then I came back and it was like there's so many people with so many strong opinions with each other, against each other. It's a very robust sort of system. And that was something that made an impression on me as someone coming back into Australia. And then I was like, well, I should get involved at the local community level. I should get involved in committees and all sorts of things that like. So my start with Gawler Council basically was before I was on the Gawler Council as a councillor. I was on one of the committees on the Youth Advisory Committee as a youth representative.
Okay.
And so, it's structured in the same way as a council meeting. Like you sit around the table, you need a quorum of the majority of people. When you have motions, you move them and you second them, and you have a chance for a debate, and then you vote, and then those motions go directly to the council, and they have to decide one way or the other. So it's not that the youth committee has the power to make decisions, but it has the power to force the conversation. So if the youth committee moves a motion, says we want a pride flag to fly above the Gawler Civic Centre, the councillors don't necessarily have to agree with it, but they are forced to state their position one way or the other.
Yeah.
when it comes to them in the meeting. So you sort of, as the youth, you're bringing those sort of issues that are relevant to young people and sort of bringing them to the council. And that was something that I found was really useful, and something that I found, I enjoy bureaucracy. I enjoy procedures and committees and reading the documents and coming up with more efficient ways of doing things, or a better way to reach, well, in this case, young people. And that was something that really stuck with me. And so that was sort of my start with specifically the local government level of politics.
Yeah, fantastic. And how long did you spend on that committee? And then was the next step directly onto council, or was there a few other things in between?
So basically, so to give you a timeline, I'm 35. This may come as a shock to some of you. People estimate anywhere between 25 and 40.
Yeah, wow. Well, I'm 28 and I thought I looked older than you, so you're doing well, Cody.
Yeah, but I'm categorised into the young people category by a lot of people, and I think it's partially, I have the youthful energy, but it's also just, I guess I learn new things. Like I taught myself how to make TikToks and stuff at the start of this year, basically, and
wow, only the start of this year. Wow.
So I had a long experience with YouTube videos and stuff, but I'd never done the phone format.
Yeah.
15 sec. Like with YouTube videos, it's basically like you can make a 15-minute video, and you can trust that they'll watch through the first 30 seconds of it because they clicked on it in the first place. Whereas for a TikTok or something, it randomly appears in their feed. You have to hook them in the first 3 seconds. So it's just a completely different format, and I had to teach myself that. But that's like, so yeah, I'm 35. So when I was 21, I came back to Gawler. When I was 23, I joined the Youth Advisory Committee. Then at 24, I ran for council.
Wow.
And didn't get in. So this was in 2014. I ran for council thinking I'm the only, like, at the time there was no one within a 30-year age range of me on the council, and I thought, well, let's, people always say we need some new blood, we need some fresh faces, etc. Let's have young people need to get involved. And so I thought, oh well, I'll run. I'll put up my hand, and people will vote for me because that's what they've been saying.
Until their spot comes up for grabs, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and then so I got about 50 votes, and I needed like 300 and something, and so I didn't do that well.
Yeah.
Because it turns out it's not enough to just put your name up there. People do. I mean, not that I wasn't doing anything, but I wasn't reaching enough people. Because I was a member of the Youth Advisory Committee. I was doing local community radio at Triple B, which is the local Barossa community radio station. I was involved in a couple of community groups, but there's a difference between being busy and showing people that you're busy.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of political art, I guess you could say, of like our local member of parliament, Tony Piccolo. He is busy. He's always doing something, but I think it's a very intentional thing that he has a big window in front of his office where you can see him in there. And then every time you walk past, you say, "Oh, Tony's working away." Yeah. And if it's 7 p.m. and you see the lights on after dark and Tony's still in there, you're like, "Oh, he's working hard." And it's not that he wasn't. He would have still been busy even if there wasn't a window.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's a window means that people go, "Oh, what a hard worker."
Yeah.
And so that's the sort of what I had to learn was it's not enough to just be someone who's active in the community and doing good things. It's not a bad thing for people to know that you're doing those good things. Like it's not, because I think a lot of people struggle with it as like, oh, that's self-promotion or whatever. And it's like, but like people appreciate knowing that the person that they want to vote for is someone who is out and about in the community, supporting local businesses, being part of community groups. And if you don't tell them, they won't just find out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting world. And then I think this goes into a little bit of that content creation piece that you have been doing so well. It's bridging that gap, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, you know, a bit about sort of what's happening in the town, the goings on, but it's also about, hey, look, there's business X who are doing this really cool thing, and it's including everyone as well. It's I like to think it's helping people in a way that hasn't really been done before, you know, helping people just understand the town as well as your role within that.
And I think that is what makes, like, because people will message me and say, well, why has no one ever reached out to us before? And I don't want to say I'm the first councillor to ever care. Like, there are plenty of councillors. There are 10 councillors, 9 and an acting mayor at the moment, but there are 10 councillors that get elected, and each of them represents several hundred people who trust them to tell them what's going on and that sort of thing. So, you know, but most of them do that through various methods. Like, social media is a skill set, and you don't necessarily, it doesn't come by default with, but like one of our councillors is, you know, 83 or something like that at this point. And he, every day, as far as I can tell, is fielding phone calls from other people in his age bracket who ask him what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's his network. That's his way of communicating with people. But for me, I thought, well, what are my strengths? My strengths are, I've got a lot of experience with media, social media, editing, like, because it's not just about being able to it's not just about public speaking or that sort of thing. Plenty of people try to make a video, but since they don't understand the algorithms, they waffle on for the first 15 seconds and then everyone's already moved on.
Yeah.
Whereas, so I'm trying to make this stuff that is like, you know, if it's longer than a minute and a half, I have to cut it down to make sure it's shorter, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a struggle sometimes, because council stuff is not, because what I have to do is read 300-page documents.
Yeah, yeah.
So that we can have a 1-hour debate at a council meeting. And that's why, so that's the thing, council does try. Council, not just councillors, but staff, make an effort to get people engaged in the system. But it's really hard when you're asking them, can you please read this 200-page document and come back to us with your feedback on whether the accounting is looking good? Because that's basically what we're asking when we say go out for the budget consultation. Because there's nothing in the council more important than the budget. Because the budget is, for the upcoming year, what are we going to spend all our money on? That is everything. That is the entire council business. And that goes up to mandatory public consultation. We give people like 21 days to submit it. And before that, we're having, you know, sessions where you can come into the civic centre and meet people. And it's often the same 5 people who actually watch the full 3-hour council meetings and previously probably were on council, or like, and it's just a real struggle to get a busy working age person to put aside a bunch of time for this stuff, unless something's gone wrong that means they're up and about because there's a pothole on their road or something.
Yeah.
See, then they're up and about and they're engaged and they're attending the council meetings and they're signing petitions, but then that finishes up.
Their interest is done.
Is done. You don't see them at another meeting. And so what I've been trying to do is say, well, for what is it, how do people engage with news in the modern day?
Yeah.
And a lot of that is content that's not longer than a minute, you know?
Attention spans are shorter and people want that information like that.
Yeah, and it's not just attention spans, it's sort of like, it is attention spans, but it's also just, it's always been a struggle to, like, I think like even 100 years ago, the number of people who were actively engaging at the high level of, like, I'm reading all the documents, I'm doing it, wasn't high, because that's something that you need enough time that you're basically, it's a part-time job.
Yeah.
Like, that's why you have councillors. That's why we don't have a vote. We don't just put every decision out to a poll of the entire council. What you have is the council elects representatives who we say, we trust that they'll make decisions that are, you know, in line with the sort of decisions that I would make. And then those people are the ones who read the 300-page document, go to the 3-hour meeting, speak their piece. But to expect everyone to do that is to say, well, if you expect everyone to do that, shouldn't you be paying everyone like $20,000 a year or something to offset the time that they need to put into doing work? Or what is actually work? But then if you don't engage at all, the community gets upset and they say, well, you didn't tell us about this.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's and I think you touched on it really well there, that a lot of people can be more reactive than proactive when it comes to these things, and the pothole thing is a fantastic example. You know, the budget gets announced, roadworks on X, Y, and Z road. Oh, why isn't my road included? But now it's a problem. Now I want to be involved because it directly affects me as a person.
Yeah.
So that'd be a challenging one to bridge, but I think the content that you're producing is very much about those pockets of information that do inform the population about whether it is businesses around the place or community engagement forums that are coming up. So I think that's definitely the way of the future. Is that how you're sort of seeing it as well?
Yeah, well, what I want is for my information to be the gateway to more information for the people who do care. Like, because basically what I'm producing are headlines. Like, it's the photo, the headline, and the little 1-paragraph summary underneath it. Because that's all people read on Facebook in a news story. Like, you know, you have the 10% of people who actually click it. Like, if a news website posts a story, the advertiser posts a story, most of the comments on that story aren't people who read the article.
Yes.
They are people who saw the title, went off about their personal grievances, and moved on.
Yeah.
And so, but you have to offer that extra detail for the people who are going to put that extra effort in. But those people see it in the first place because the people who just read the headline are liking and commenting and engaging, and it's boosting it up the algorithm. And so it's sort of, you might get a 10% share, but it's a 10% share of a pie that's 10 times as big. Means you've got what would be the 100% share of someone who isn't doing the stuff that brings people along. You know, so it's just sort of that balance of like, I'm trying to provide, like, these are facts, these are things you need to know in, like, you know, 3 sentences or less. But if you are interested, and if it is something that needs a bit more detail, I'll put a link in the comment section, or depending on the platform, whatever method it is, and say, if you want to read this traffic management survey, you know, this is the link to it.
Yeah.
Because there's always a struggle for us. Like, people have lots of opinions about, like, the roads, for example. What should be done with Murray Street? Or someone says, why don't you close it off and make it a mall? And someone says, why don't you make it one way? And someone says this and this. And the frustrating part is these aren't things that we had never thought of. Like, the councillors and staff are members of the same community that you are, and have these same thoughts and drive down these same roads, and have investigated these things. But those are all in 200-page documents.
Yeah.
And so people just keep suggesting the things that have already come up. So that's where I try and tackle, like, common questions of, like, what's wrong with this wall? Why is that row of empty shops been like that for so long? Because the council, I'm not providing new information. That wasn't investigative journalism where I was the first one to announce it. That's something that the council put in a report, probably made it into the local newspaper. 95% of people do not know it still. Yeah,
exactly.
And so I'm just trying to break through with information that the council already knows.
Yeah, that is available to people that probably don't know where to find it. Yeah, absolutely. So, heading down that sort of path there, we all hear the rhetoric around what people think of councils and that kind of thing. You know, one of the arguments is often, they look after their own interests, for example, or, you know, the cul-de-sac down their street or that kind of thing. What's your response to that sort of comment?
So I think that's just not true in the modern day. I think the problem is that was true in the 1960s.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So conflict of interest legislation was introduced in like the 70s and 80s, meaning like if you have a financial interest in this matter, you declare a conflict and you leave the room.
Yeah.
So if it's going to directly affect your business, you have to, if it's vague enough, like, because everyone has a conflict of interest with stuff that affects everyone. Like if you say, oh, we're going to improve Murray Street, and it's like, I drive down Murray Street for my job. It's like, yes, so does 20,000 other people. You're not directly having an interest. But if it's like, we want to sell this land, and then one of the councillors like owns the block of land next to it and is looking to buy the land once it's sold, that's something that they need to say, I have a conflict of interest. If they don't say that and then they get found out, they will be investigated for corruption by the ombudsman.
Yeah.
Like there's systems in place to stop that sort of the old boys, you know, that with lots of money doing property deals in secret stuff is probably what council was from creation to some extent. Like it was a lot of the universal franchise for local government voting in South Australia didn't happen until the 1970s.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there were property requirements until then.
Mm-hmm.
So the upper house, the Legislative Council in South Australia and council elections, it wasn't until the 1970s that those got removed and it just became, if you are of voting age, you can vote.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's only a 50 years old thing.
That's crazy, isn't it?
And so like this is not something, we're not talking about 1700s, we're talking about the 1970s. And you know, not to get down a state level politics rabbit hole, but basically Don Dunstan came in, was sort of the first Labor Premier to survive more than one consecutive term in the state's history, and then did pushed through a bunch of reforms that had been blocking Labor from having, like the upper house basically had a little system where rural seats had like a quarter of the population but 2/3 of the upper house seats, and there were property requirements to vote in the upper house, and so rich farmers just exclusively controlled who got into the upper house, and so Labor basically, even if they won 60% of the vote, never had majority there. So, and then the 70s, he came along, basically said, if you don't change this, I'm just going to call another election I'm just going to keep calling elections until the upper house is forced to agree to my demands. Yeah. And then they changed a bunch of this stuff. But that's sort of the history behind it at the South Australian level. Yeah. But it meant that local government for the first time was something that wasn't just a ratepayers thing, it became a residents thing. Okay. And because there's still a focus on ratepayers, but I think that can be misleading because renters are ratepayers. They are indirectly paying the rates to the landlord, who is paying the rates. Yeah. But if the renters left, the landlords would not have any of that money to pay the rates with. Like it is the renters' money that is being used for the rates. They are just not receiving the rates notice. Yeah. And so I think that the sort of elitism of the old days of just like, oh, well, only the they're the ones who are paying the money, so they're the ones who should be part of the system. They should be voting. Yeah. Is like, you know, I think that was short-sighted, because if you got rid of the rich landowners who, if they weren't allowed to vote, if they left the town would mostly keep functioning. Yeah. If the people who weren't allowed to vote, the wives, the workers, the shop assistants, if they left the town, it would completely financially collapse. Yeah. But they were not ratepayers, and so they didn't have a vote.
Yeah, you just couldn't imagine that in today's society, could you? A lot more people probably rent now than they ever did. So
yeah, and that's something that I think is worth having that diversity of views on. Like I'm old now, as you know.
Old's a bit of a stretch, mate.
I'm only the third youngest member of the council now.
Oh, there you go.
So like in the last council elections, a couple more, young ones from a couple of the Zoomers came in, and I'm a millennial. So,
yeah.
So they were, doing whatever the youth slang is now.
I couldn't tell you. I don't keep up with that myself. But,
and that's, most young people are not homeowners. If a young person is a homeowner, either they have received inheritance, or their family is very rich for the most part. If they're in their 20s, there are some exceptions. There are some people who just out of, we have a 21-year-old senator now.
Yeah, exactly.
She's going to receive whatever it is, $500,000 a year or what. There's always going to be exceptions of people who find great work, but for the most part, younger people at the moment are not in stages of employment where they're getting enough money that it's reasonable for them to be homeowners, or at least homeowners that aren't deep in mortgage situations.
Yeah.
And so it's important to have that diversity of types of people, because if you just have one type of person on the council, they just have that big blind spot for how's everyone else experiencing the town.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, it is such a diverse population we have in many senses, not just culturally, but in terms of socioeconomic status and political view and opinion, age range as well. And Gawler's just constantly growing, and I mean, there's obviously tangents we can go down about rezoning and land, but we might save that for another time. But as an overall summary, I suppose, what would you say is the most important part of your role as a councillor?
So I think with councillors, everyone comes to it with their own stuff they want to do. Like there's the stuff that's universal to councillors, which is you need to be informed when you're making your votes, when you're making your decisions. And that can mean reading 200-page documents, but it can also mean being out in the community, knowing how the community feels about these topics, But the way that you go about that is different to each person, and your expertise is different for each person. Because the councillor doesn't need any qualification aside from, the qualification of they need to be on the voter roll in that, like they need to live there or have a business interest in the town so that they're on the voter roll. They need to be over 18 so they're on the voter roll. Otherwise, and they need to win votes. If you've done those things, you're a councillor. It doesn't matter if you've got. It doesn't matter if you are a high flying, person, or someone who's just, always been on welfare or whatever. Like, you represent different parts of the population, so it's better to have that diversity because councillors don't make individual decisions. I don't have a power. I have no individual powers, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like, as a council, when we make a majority vote, we have the power to direct the CEO to say, we're going to shut down the pool, we're going to shut down the library, we're going to stop watering the ovals of the football club so they can do it themselves. These are all theoretical and not happening.
I was going to say, disclaimer there.
But these are things. None of those things are things that we legally have to do.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Maintaining an aquatic centre is something that drains money more than it makes us. Like, we lose money on the pool, but that's fine because the purpose of the pool is to be a community asset, not to be a business operation. Like, we do charge fees to try and offset some of the costs because the money that we use is your money. It's the money of the local residents that's going into the rates, which is being used for the pool. But it's also but when we offer a fees and charges, but less than what you would have to do a Starplex or whatever, for example, that might be a bit more premium, a bit more all year round, whereas we offer like, here's a cheap option for an outdoor pool. That's something that, yeah, like, we don't have to do that. A lot of councils don't do that. A lot of councils don't have a pool.
Yeah.
And it's draining us money, but it's like, and that's where we have to make the decision of like, people love to say, make the rates go down. But if we said, great, we will drop the rates, we will close the pool, they would be furious.
Yeah, it's having your cake and eating it too, isn't it? Yeah.
And that's where you need to be, as a councillor, be across the dynamics of what the community want. Because there's lots of decisions you could make. There are things we can't do, which are things that are state or federal scope, or private scope, like private industry scope. Like, the people have come to me and said, why is the stock at the local Target, not what I want? and I'm like, well, that's probably because the Target doesn't perform that well because it's tucked away in that shopping centre that people don't visit, but it's not a council issue.
Yeah.
But like, as long as it's within the scope of the council, there's lots we can do, but it needs to rely on what the people are asking for. But not just populism also. Like, it can't just be a majority vote, because if I did a poll saying, do you want the rates to go up or down? I know what the result's going to be by a 95% margin.
Yeah.
But also, I have a responsibility as a councillor to be the one who's read the documents and know, hold on, all of these things that are making the rates go up are all things that the community are demanding. They're saying, why are there potholes on this road? Why aren't there footpaths on my street? But don't spend money. And so we always have to work through that balance.
Not a very favourable position, is it? You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, aren't you?
Yeah, and council in some ways is the closest level of government to the people in terms of the amount of people I represent. Like, our local federal MP, Matt Burnell, represents Spence. So he's one person representing like half of the Salisbury Council, the full Playford Council, the full Gawler Council. It's like 100 to 150,000 people sort of range. And that's one representative. And so, it's democracy, but it's also like the amount that he can meet with each person in his area one-on-one is limited.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas you get down to the state government level, and it's like Tony Piccolo represents basically the town of Gawler, plus Manapara is sort of that light electorate. And that's one person representing, 30,000, 35,000 people.
Yeah.
And then you get to the council level, and we're 10, 11 people, including the mayor, representing 25,000 people. And so it splits down into, if each councillor represents 2,500 people, that's sort of a more manageable level of like, you can actually meet 2,500 people.
Yeah, exactly.
In the town.
Yeah.
Drink
a lot of coffee doing it, but you can do it.
Well, not in a day, obviously, but over the course of 4 years or whatever, you can, which is the council term, like, you can have engaged with a number of people, and so it's that close level to people, but it also means it's the one that gets scrutinised the most heavily in some ways, because if we have a meeting, all our meetings are expected to be public, and if we have something that's confidential, we go into confidence, but we have to vote on it, and then we get critique of why are they hiding things from us. State and federal cabinet meetings, they're on like a 30-year release delay. Like, we're getting Hawke Keating government stuff federally that's now coming out because that's the delay on the complete and total secrecy for decades. But since that's sort of not quite as close to home, you don't get the outrage about that you do when a local council meeting that's open to the public has a decision that involves like an ongoing tender or something, and then so you have to close down for 30 minutes, and people are going, "Why are you so secret?"
Yeah.
So it's always a struggle to just manage the expectations of being so close and so but so far away in some way.
You've pushed hard, you've broken down, and now it's time to rebuild. At Mind Over Matter practice in Victor Harbor, recovery isn't an afterthought, it's the whole point. Their treatments are designed to help you come back stronger, both mentally and physically. You'll find cold water immersion, float tank rest therapy, steam and infrared saunas, and mild hyperbaric oxygen sessions to repair the body, clean the mind, and reignite your drive. And don't forget, mention my name, Trav, when you book in and get 15% off of any treatment. This is where pain becomes power. Head to mindovermatterpractice.com.au and start your comeback today.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the example that came to mind then is a certain member of the community and his, I suppose, questioning of the decision about the screens that went up in Gawler, the community screens. I think you might know what I'm talking about there, but it does make a lot of sense with, I suppose it's that direct impact on the individual that they see more readily, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's great being at that local level. Like, I really enjoy it. It's just one of those things that. So the question that you asked me like 20 minutes ago before we got on to this was like, what's the most important thing for a counsellor? And so I was saying each counsellor represents different aspects of the community. And so as I was saying, I'm a social media sort of person. If it's around media or marketing or communications or that sort of thing, the other counsellors will come to me asking, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Whereas we've got a construction guy, we've got a builder on the council, and so when something comes up, when the council comes to us and says, all right, we've got a quote on building this shed, it's $100,000, we go to the builder on the council and we say, how much are they ripping us off?
Yeah.
Not the council, but the contractor who knows that governments will pay the premium rate. How much would this actually cost if a private individual was requesting a contract? And so we can get that context from having someone involved in that part of it. And so you have, a former librarian, you have an arborist, and so each councillor has a contribution to the greater decision-making body. And for me, I think I've got those areas of strength in communications and that sort of thing that means that I can give significant advice in a way that I can't on, like, you go to a council meeting, the stuff that you have to decide on is across the board. They'll be like, here's an accounting matter, here's a tree planting matter, here's a libraries matter, here's a development applications matter. And I'm not equally skilled at all of those. Nobody, if I had all those skills, if I had the expertise of just 5 of our executive staff combined, who all did, postgraduate degrees in civil engineering or whatever, I wouldn't be a councillor, I would be a super CEO.
Yeah, exactly right. The public sector wouldn't be the avenue, would it? The
city of Sydney would be desperate to get me to be their CEO. So you can't expect people to be like an expert on everything that comes across the council. So the councillors rely on each other, they rely on the expertise of the staff, they rely on input from the community, and together they come around and make a decision.
Yeah, it's the heart of democracy, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's to collaborate, to graduate, and try and deliver the best outcome. What's been the biggest challenge for you in public life in general?
So I think it is because obviously I'm sort of at the level of being recognised on the street by people who I don't know, and that sort of thing. And it just, it means that you reach a lot of people, and then sometimes you just get a person who is completely unreasonable, demands all of your time, and it's like, if I'm managing these 5 people who demand all of my time, that's my entire work day, basically, and then I'm not actually doing my job. And so you have to find this balance of like, but they say, I'm a citizen, I'm a ratepayer, you should listen to me.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, but you have taken up, 100 hours of the staff's time, this month. You're actually costing us basically a full-time staff position each year in customer service staff who aren't able to do their other part of their job. And you have to find a way to get these people with very strong opinions, and they're deeply passionate, they care about the community a lot of the time, but it's like, how do you make that balance of like, well, you're meant to represent people, but sometimes you just have to tell people you are completely clogging up the works in a way that's making it that there are things that are not happening.
Yeah.
There are things that people want to, like if I just stopped giving updates, stopped making videos, and people asked where I went, and I said, sorry, I've got, like, I need to manage three community members, like, mental health,
Yeah.
It would be like, I don't think that's a good use of your time, Cody.
Yeah. Striking the balance.
Yeah. But, like, obviously you want to help people, but sometimes you have to figure out, okay, this is attempt 6.
Yeah. Can I delegate this elsewhere? Is this person better served in another part of the community?
Yeah.
For example, yeah. It's an interesting one, and I assume, with the social media presence that you do have, that the inbox gets clogged very quickly, and similar sorts of people, and
and look, and the thing is, that's not to say that's very common. It's most people are very good. It's just if you reach 10,000 people, that means that 0.01% of the population could be unreasonable, and then I think that's 1 in 10,000. I only did that. I might be a decimal point off. But I just did that calculation.
Asking the wrong bloke, mate.
But if 1 in 10,000 people are going to drain all of your time and energy, emotional energy and everything, that's just something you have to work through, because the fact is you've reached 10,000 people, and a lot of those people are good and interested and positive. So you just have to not get dragged down by thinking, oh, I failed this one person, or this sort of thing,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good that you've got that holistic mindset as well, because especially on the social media landscape, it could be very easy to let the negative naysayers and, people do get quite abusive and aggressive. I've seen it on your posts and things like that. So to have that thick skin and manage it well is a very good skill to have.
And my posts the community on my posts are very nice. And I think a lot of that's to do with people are much nicer to a face.
Yeah.
Like the official Town of Gawler page receives considerably more criticism. Like if they post, so this might be a little dated by whatever time this gets uploaded, but this week the Town of Gawler made a post saying we're adding a disability car park in front of the Gawler Civic Centre.
Yes. Yeah.
And there was huge lists of criticism. Some people saying, why didn't you do this 30 years ago? And other people saying, this is a disaster that you're doing this. How dare you interrupt the flow of the main street, which is already slow. And it's like, it was a positive announcement that one of our car parks is becoming disability friendly. But it just, if you'd read the comment section, you'd think they'd committed a horrible faux pas.
100%, yeah.
And then I posted it a couple of days later, being like, all right, well, let's reach my followers with this. It's all been very positive. Some people had some questions, but they're not framed as if I'm corrupt or incompetent or whatever. They're just like, oh, I had some questions, Cody.
Yeah.
And so I get the nice end of it, because people see me as a person, whereas they see brands as what you can rage against.
Yeah. It's rage against the man, isn't it? The old rhetoric.
Yeah.
So, sort of bearing in mind that this episode will be out a few weeks later than what we're recording today, we are keenly awaiting the process of electing a new mayor. Can you talk to us a bit about that, and are you going to be putting your hand up?
Yeah, so I'm planning to put my hand, or by the time you see this, I will have already done so, because the August 7th is the deadline for nominations, and then they'll draw the names out of the so that they can decide the ballot order. And then it will be off to the races, and then basically the month of September will be spent getting people to return their ballots, which are vote by mail.
Okay.
And so you've got like 3 weeks or so to return it.
Yep.
But yeah, so I'm running for a lot of the reasons that we've been talking about before. Of like, I think communication is important, and I think I've got a skill in turning bureaucratic speak into regular speak and condensing it into 30 seconds. That's not something that you can just, not something that the average person can just, that is a skill set from, 15 years of experience in the digital media industry. And some experience with journalism, some experience with social media, understanding, because if you do journalism study, they sort of, they talk about like here's when you make an article, you put the most important bit first, and then you put the next most important bit next, like it goes from the top down, and you order it in a way where it's like exciting headline, thing that they need to know, thing, in the next step of the thing, and then the bit that you need to put in there, but like it doesn't matter if half the people don't read it at the bottom. And that's something, these are skills that you need in order to communicate with disengaged people. And that is the biggest struggle the council has. The voter turnout at the last council election was 33%, meaning the winner of that last council election did not vote, with an astonishing full 2/3 supermajority of the vote.
That's insane when you think about it, isn't it? I think you put a post up the other day, like your page has more followers than the entire voting turnout last election. That's just insane, and then people get so passionate about the issues, but they're not having their say where it actually counts.
Yeah, and so that's where I think I can offer my perspective as a mayoral candidate, is to say, well, if what you want is to know what's going on, it's not that other candidates and other past councillors, other past mayors don't try, but this new social media age requires a specific set of skills for communication.
Yeah.
And so the people who do vote traditionally have been the older people who have the word of mouth networks. They play bridge together at the elderly centre, and then they go to their Rotary meeting, and then they, meet up with their old school friends for dinner. Like there are demographics here that have that network already, and they feel informed, and then they vote.
Yeah.
But the turnout amongst like someone in a new development in like Oleana Waters or Springwood, or one of these places where young families move in, they don't feel they do not feel connected in the same way to the town.
Yeah.
They don't view themselves necessarily as people from Gawler. They view themselves as people whose house is in Gawler, and then they work in or have fun in the city, or that sort of, they view this as Adelaide.
Yeah, Greater Adelaide.
Greater
sort of
Adelaide,
thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And so a lot of them don't get the word of mouth because they're not in those local community groups and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not just sort of making things up. We've got the statistics of like who uses our services. Like we did a thing of like our civic centre, our library, our other library in Emerson Gardens, the elderly centre, the sports and recreation centre, all of the different offerings that council has for community stuff. We've done polling and said, where are you from? What age group are you in? How did you find out about our stuff? The primary way that people find out about our stuff was word of mouth. A lot of the people are older in the retirement age bracket, and in terms of the top suburbs, they're all in the northern half.
Yeah.
It's all Gawler and the sort of the old parts of Gawler East, Gawler South. Williston has a bunch of people using the services, but like the Evanston Park, Evanston Gardens, Cuddler, Hillier, half of the council, which makes up like half of the population too. Just significantly underrepresented in those because a lot of them, like even for the Evanston Gardens Library, which is in Evanston Gardens was not in the like top 5 locations of people who use the facilities.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
And so like that gap, if we're to stay as a community and not just become housing,
Yeah,
we need to communicate with all those people too, not just the people who traditionally have been have their networks to find out what's going on.
yeah, 100%. And I think what you're doing is certainly bridging that gap in a big way. You know, especially because those like your Evanstons and your Evanston Parks, Evanston South, they are around schools.
Yeah.
You know, so there are those younger families there, younger people, they use social media. And so I think you've identified a really key opportunity growth area there. Now, we've obviously talked about voter turnout as a big issue that you want to address. What are some other issues that you are passionate about addressing should you be successful in your pursuit for mayor?
So just speaking in terms of the actual physical issues that the council is facing, the growth, the housing growth, means that our infrastructure is creaking. People complain about congestion. People complain about the speed of, inching down Murray Street at peak times, all that sort of thing, and then they avoid Murray Street and go to the shops at Manapara or whatever. And a lot of that is because the growth is happening, but we need the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And a lot of that infrastructure is not at the council level, it's at the advocacy level with state and federal governments, because trucks keep coming down our main street and breaking verandas and like terrorising our verandas on the main street. Like the one outside of Tony Picklow's office still hasn't been replaced after a B triple somehow got through a narrow passageway and made a desperate turn and took out the whole veranda and like 2 cars.
Gave a few Saturday night pub goers a good viewing, I think that did.
But like, that's not something that's at the council. Like, that truck made a series of about 10 bad decisions to get off the freeway. But those truck routes are something that are at a state and federal level. Like, but we need to be able to advocate, well, we need a bypass road outside of our council area so that the traffic situation is better inside our council area. And I think for me, the way to address that involves obviously talking to them, but also having the backing of the community. And having the backing of the community means that they're active and engaged and informed and know what they want. Because if they don't, they're very easy to ignore. And the squeaky wheel will get the grease somewhere South Road or whatever. And so you need to have an informed community in order to be able to be in a negotiating position. Because you can have, obviously you need good relationships with people at state and federal levels, but also they would appreciate that help too in, like, I know Matt Burnell, our federal MP, there's a lot that he wants to do, but also I know that we're in the safest Labor seat in the state, and so when it comes to funding promises from the federal government at the federal level, it's always going to be, he has to fight really hard to get just a few things out here as compared to what you would get if we were in a swing seat. It's loyalty not really rewarded in that sense, isn't it? And so if you've got an active population who is united, says what they want, are sending, whenever there's a survey or a poll or whatever, they're saying, make a bypass road, build a hospital in Gawler. That really helps at the state and federal level for them to be able to say, well, this is what the people are saying, not just this is what the council's saying, because the council's a bit impotent without community support. They can just be walked over if it's just like, oh, we'll annoy the council, but like people don't really like the council. Whereas being able to say, oh, this is a grassroots community issue, and you will be politically rewarded for fixing it.
Yeah,
creates
people are
an incentive.
engaged. Yeah. So it's a real trickle up situation almost, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like, be heard by the majority.
Yeah.
You have to get the majority engaged. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Is there anything else that does speak to you as an issue that you would like to directly address going forward?
Look, there's always a lot of things. As I was saying, every time there's a council meeting, there's 10 different issues that pop up of just like, what's our stormwater management policy, or what are we going to do about the hard rubbish collection, or what are we going to... So there's 1,000 little things that are all important and we do need to talk about, but I think on the broad level, I think the growth, but also the community stuff that comes with. So generally, I think I think the main issues are the growth in our council, but also outside of our council. And so our own council, Springwood, for example, is still only about half done.
Yeah.
The Cuddler area is going to come online and double our population. Those are major concerns inside our council area.
Mm-hmm.
But then Concordia, for example, outside our council area, is going to be another population the size of Gawler, directly on Gawler's doorstep, like right next to Gawler East.
Yeah.
And so that means they'll come down. We need to figure out, so what's the road we're going to sacrifice for like 5,000, 10,000 cars coming through it that weren't coming through it before? What will need to be upgraded? All these sort of long-term considerations of the growth, because the growth will happen, because the state government, I think, understands that people are telling them there's a housing crisis, and they're saying, we will build more housing.
Yeah.
And this is the area that's not just us, but like Anglevale, Virginia Way, Two Wells,
Roseworthy.
Playford's the fastest growing council in the state. And so just this entire sort of northern stretch is going to have a huge amount of growth. And so we just need to figure out what's the stuff we can work through with neighbouring councils, what's the stuff we can work through with state government, and then what can we do at our level to make sure the community stays a community.
Yeah.
And that's the part where I feel like I can bring the most in saying, well, the community will feel like a community if people feel like they're informed and engaged on what's going on. And that's what I've been working towards.
Yeah, and as I've echoed throughout, I think you've done a really, really good job doing that, and I really engage with your content. As I think I commented on one of your posts, I've never been more informed about council proceedings than since you started making your videos, so I certainly do think you are providing that information that is valuable to the community, so full credit to you for that.
Yeah, and look, I guess just to say, what will decide this election is going to be turnout.
Yeah.
Because as I was saying, if the turnout is 33% was the last election, but that was a proper full election. There were mayoral elections, councillor elections, it's sort of all happening across the state. People were aware it was going on. By-elections tend to have a lower turnout.
Yeah.
But like, the mayor at the last election won with about 2,500 first preference votes.
Wow.
I have more Instagram followers than that.
Yeah.
But I did.
Crazy.
But I did a poll recently, and hold on, I'll just pull it up. Actually, like my story, I did a poll on my story, saying, "Well, who has ever voted before in a Gawler Council election?" And the response was 39% yes, 61% no. Out of the people who follow me.
Yeah.
And that's a population that's likely to be more likely to have voted because they're people who bothered to get engaged on following a councillor and interacting with them.
Yeah.
Whereas the actual population of Instagram's demographic who voted is probably like 15%. Because, as we were saying earlier, the older voters will trend towards having been part of the community for a long time, and they have word of mouth to find out about stuff, and they still read the newspaper and other stuff that connects them to that old style of Gawler. With a lot of the young people find that a lot of them assume, oh, I probably can't even vote because I don't own a home.
Yeah.
And so, but if you can get those people out, that turns everything on its head. If my Instagram followers all turned out single-handedly, I would be competing with how well the mayor did in the last council election.
Yeah.
But it's a real struggle to make that a reality.
Of course, yeah. And I think that like anything is a gradual process, but we're certainly heading in the right direction for that. And I do see, more and more different demographics engaging with content like yours as well, and a few other councillors are starting to, I suppose, follow your lead, which is great to see, because that just means a more informed community, which gets back to what you were saying about then we can take these bigger issues that people have a problem with to the state and the federal level. So
yeah, and it's not. I'm not going to focus on just young people. That's sort of the Instagram outreach or TikTok outreach, I guess I would call it.
Mm-hmm.
But like my Facebook is my biggest account, and that nobody under 25 seems to use Facebook for anything other than Messenger and Marketplace. And the stats bear that out. Like maybe 2 or 3% of my Facebook followers are under 25.
Wow. Okay. I've got to stop using Facebook.
Yeah. And so that means that, it's also a lot of older people in the community that appreciate this new style of TikTok style video. Like, we sort of make it seem like a young person thing, but it's just how a lot of people in general engage with the world now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really, really good to see. And I suppose another question I have for you is, do you have the intention eventually of going down the state or federal political path?
I'd have to see. I think for the moment there's just so much to do at the local government level. Like, I think councils are in a state right now where it is. I think they're really lacking in the areas that I'm strong in, which is communication with the public in a way that engages with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because state and federal have mandatory voting and all this sort of thing, and so they do get everyone, even if they're not that engaged. It's time for the election, and so they think, all right, we need to make a decision. And 95+% of people end up voting and correctly filling in their forms.
Yeah.
You'll get that 5% that write rude words in there instead of numbering them, or number the number 1 3 times and then it gets thrown out for being invalid. But for the most part, everyone makes that effort to say, all right, at least finding a political party or whatever that they feel most represents them, and then following their how to vote or whatever. But council's so much more vague. Council, the ballot doesn't have political parties on it. It's just, you go to a council election, putting aside the mayoral election, the councillor election, we don't have wards or anything, so we elect 10 positions all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And so last time there were maybe 23 people for 10 positions.
Yeah.
And so you, as someone who may not know any of these people, you open your mail, you pull out a form, there's a list of 25 names, and you have to number 1 to 10 in order. You don't know any of the people. What's your likelihood of voting?
Yeah, exactly. Or I think in the last one even, it was like a little paragraph about everyone, and that was it.
It comes with there's a little booklet that comes alongside it where you have I think it's 1,000 characters is the limit that they set. Wow. And a little photo.
Yeah.
And then you just have that, and so you can do your research if you haven't been paying attention, but you want to do your democratic duty. So that's probably, it might be that 10-15% of the population actually could name more than one councillor. And then the other 15-20% who vote don't pay that much attention, but they're like, I better vote, let's read the little booklet, let's try and make the best, most informed decisions I can. And then 65% of people can say,
yeah,
doesn't matter, or doesn't affect me, or wouldn't make a difference anyway, or I don't know any of these people. And I think that's a shame.
Goes in the bin with the junk mail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we certainly get some change in that respect coming up to this election, and hopefully by the time this comes out, you and I are having a very different conversation. And you know, if we are successful, we might have to do this again in a different capacity. But before we do finish up, is there anything you want to leave us with today?
Look, just look to the camera. Get involved. You know, be part of the local community. Be part of just if you're part of a sporting club, consider volunteering. Like, those sporting clubs are only possible because people come in, they do the sweeping, they prepare food before training sessions. They're just out and about doing various things, and that's the same for any group in the community. And so we need engaged people, we need volunteers and that sort of thing more than ever in our local community. And it also means you feel connected to the local area.
Yeah, fantastic. It is really important, and I think a lot of people now are, you know, a bit more time poor, but if we can spend our time a bit more consciously engaging with the community, it's only going to be better for it in the long run. And I think, you know, there's a particular footy club that we both live near, and I can smell the schnitzels cooking every Thursday night. And I do need to get down there one day to enjoy that, but that's all volunteers as well, isn't it? Yeah. Fantastic. So where can people find you online?
So I am in official capacity on my Councillor Cody Davies account. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on TikTok. And those mostly receive the same, with variations. Like Instagram, I post a lot of stories that don't necessarily go on the other platforms, because Instagram's very story heavy. Whereas Facebook might get more photos that would otherwise just be a story on Instagram are worthy of a full post on Facebook, and then the TikTok just gets the videos because the stories, I've posted stories, but they don't get engaged with or looked at that much. Like it's not really the way their algorithm works. So like it's a little bit different across each platform, but they're all, you'll find out about Gawler through all of them, and I'd encourage you to, whichever ones you're on, to have a look.
Fantastic. So I'll put all of Cody's details there into the show notes, and you'll see some promotion on my page as well. Speaking of my page, that's The Journey of Trav on Instagram. You can find the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts as well. And yeah, hopefully by this time, by the time this episode runs out, we do have a mayor in yourself, Cody.
Yeah, well, hopefully this episode goes out a bit before then, because it's late September that we'll find out.
Yes, well, this will definitely go out there. We are embargoed for a little while until the announcement comes out. But no, thank you so much for your time, Cody. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
and
great to talk.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.
See ya.